All right, folks, welcome in. It is the newest edition of the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. I am TJ Reeves, the somewhat competent host of the program. My co-host is Mike Gill. Good to be with you. I come your way from West Central Florida as we get ready to do this here over the next little bit live. And Mike Gill comes your way from Atlantic City, where he's the 5-day-a-week host on the ESPN radio station with the Sports Drive, the Sports Bash, in Afternoon Drive, I should say, in Atlantic City on the ESPN affiliate. Good to be back with you, Mike. And there is no shortage of subject matter from Cooper Flagg finds out his new NBA home via the draft lottery. The Rich Eisen show apparently on the move. Michael Jordan is back. Remember, he had the famous 2-word statement 30 years ago, "I'm back," when he retired from baseball and came back. He's going to be back on TV. We have the 1-year anniversary of the great controversy with Scottie Scheffler, the top golfer in the world, being arrested during the PGA Championship. It's a year later. They're about to play the PGA Championship. We got a lot to cover and go over. Good to be with you, my friend, as we do this live on a Tuesday. How are things in your world here? NFL schedule release coming up as well. How are you?
Yeah, we are very busy. You know, I was locked into the NBA draft lottery last night. So that was something that I was keyed in on. We have no basketball here. We haven't had hockey in 5 years. So I'm in on the NBA draft lottery and the schedule, which, by the way, the Eagles are playing on a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, and a Monday. No Sunday games yet.
Yeah, so we already have some of the schedule reveal being announced. There's rumors everywhere, internet rumors. We're going to go over all of this. Thank you for finding us. By the way, we're also a podcast. So if you're seeing us on Mike's YouTube page or on social media, on the Twitter X, under Mike Gill Show for his Twitter, my Twitter, Buck Sideline Guy, BUC, Buck Sideline Guy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers radio duties that I do. If you're seeing us, you can also take us with the AirPods, the earbuds, the Bluetooth of the car via Apple, Spreaker, Spotify under Last Word on Sports Media podcast. We love chopping up the sports media with the takes, the info, guests that are joining us from time to time, etc. So thank you. Hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. We've got some good audience on social media and YouTube. But by the same token, like and subscribe and review us on the podcast feeds and take you with us wherever you go without, we don't want you to have an accident if you're driving, but if you're on the commute or whatever, you're out cutting the lawn, everybody's cutting the lawn now these days, or whatever it is, take us in your ears with the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. So let's get underway with the NBA playoffs a little bit. We've got 2 or 3 subjects on that. We'll move along to the schedule release, the Rich Eisen show, and the other topics. First of all, can I just say this? I realize we're going to get to more dramatic basketball in the conference finals and the NBA finals, but right now, a lot of it is a tough watch from a scoring standpoint, a lot of missed shots. Mike, there was an NBA playoff game in the series with Oklahoma City and Denver that was 17-8 at the end of the first quarter on not being able to make shots. Follow that up with the Cleveland-Indianapolis game the other night, and I know they're playing again on Tuesday night as we do this on Tuesday night, Cleveland and Indy, with Indy trying to end that series. But Indy scored 80 points in the first half on Cleveland. Were they playing with 4 guys on defense? Some of this is a bad look, just trying to watch it and get into it. What are your thoughts, Mike, to get us underway?
It's amazing how many games you see that you might not even be watching, and you're like, oh, I forgot that game was on. And you're like, the reason you know it was on because the score is 82-29. And you're like, are you kidding me right now? Yeah, we talked about it last week that the NBA has a situation where they're lucky they got Celtics Knicks. Well, that series is now 3-1. Jason Tatum, sadly, you hate to see that. He is now gone. So it looks like the Knicks are going to move on. So the NBA will catch a big break getting the New York market. But they're going to likely play the Pacers, it looks like. It could be an old Reggie Miller versus Patrick Ewing, little Knicks, Pacers, 90s. So maybe they can build something off of that. But we talked about it last week. The winner of the Pacers and the Cavs, not a great market or draw, but getting the Knicks is a big help. On the Western side, you've got some decent series. You got 2-2 tonight with Denver and Oklahoma City. Neither one a big draw market-wise. I guess Minnesota and Golden State, you're still holding out hope that Golden State wins that series, because if they're out, then you got a Minnesota, Oklahoma City, or Denver situation, which would not be good.
Right, and you're not in real control over having the best teams make it all the way to the finals, but Steph Curry is hurt now since we talked last. Golden State probably going to bow out.
Yeah, they're down 3-1.
Is this going to damage the Western Conference Finals and maybe now New York? And New York is on fire right now. This is what's comical is I get my fill of all the New York media members and all the honks and all the New York fans. It is pathetic. That's the word that I will use, that they're so excited over a 3-1 lead in the series in the conference semifinals as being the most important playoff moment for them this century in the last 25 years. I mean, like the San Antonio Spurs have won multiple world titles. The Golden State Warriors have won multiple world titles. LeBron James, for God's sakes, has won the NBA championship with 3 different teams in the 2000s. And the Knicks fans are jumping up and down over a Game 4 win at the Garden at home as if it's actually accomplished something. Settle down a little bit. If they're winning the NBA Finals 3-1, that's different. New York does not have a basketball championship, the Knicks, going back to the early 70s. If we're close to winning the NBA title, that's a little different. So New York may help with some of the ratings.
Big time.
We'll see. But the product, man, it's a tough watch with all the missed 3-pointers and all the missed shots.
Well, you go to the Knicks and Celtics series. I mean, yes, give New York credit. They've been down 20. They've come back, and all their wins have been double-digit deficits. Yes. But the first game, you had the Celtics shoot 63s and miss 45 of them. The Knicks had to shoot 45% from 3 to win that game. Think about that. You miss 45 threes. The other team hit almost 46% of their threes, and the game went to overtime.
The Celtics missed 73 pointers, 7-0 in the first 2 games.
Yeah, so game 2, right. They missed 30 threes in the game. It's incomprehensible. And then, of course, the third game that they won, they hit like 50% of their threes. Charles Barkley said this a couple, somewhere along the line where Barkley's been on every, format, but he said it's no longer a, competition. It's a contest. These games have turned into contests. Who can make more threes? It's not a good look. Although I will tell you, A lot of people that I know who are NBA fans in that first round thought there was a lot of highly competitive, good games in the first round, which you normally don't see. The first round generally is 8 gets blasted by 1, 2 blast 7. You had a lot more close, tight series in that first round than you're getting now.
All right, and real quick, our friend and colleague John Lewis did report on the ratings from the weekend and the announcements that at least, look, the Timberwolves-Warriors game on ABC in primetime Saturday night had 6.5 million watching, and that is up. That's up by more than 1 million people on the comparable Celtics-Cavaliers game from a year ago. And even earlier in the day on Saturday afternoon, the Celtics wiping out the Knicks had over 5 million watching. So again, the hope would be at least with the New York team. Then on Sunday, Thunder Nuggets on network TV, 6 million again. The hope would be with the New York team. Again, can they get to 7 or 8 million on the network games? Maybe 8 or 9 million, something like that on the network TV games. If it is going to be the Knicks. Now, if you end up with Indiana against Minnesota or Oklahoma City, that could be trouble on that. Let's move on to the draft lottery on Monday night. Made for TV event. It's now the 41st year. They started doing the draft lottery back in 1985. I still remember a teenage TJ watching this at halftime of one of the NBA playoff games where they did it with the big plastic drum and they were turning the drum and David Stern would reach in and pull the envelopes out. Well, now they do it in a separate secure room with ping pong balls and the team executives are there watching and they're all sequestered and kept away when they then bring the envelopes out and reveal it on TV. I have to confess, I was not watching the show, but I became aware on social media that Dallas had won the lottery. You were watching the show. Your thoughts, Mike Gill, on watching the NBA draft lottery show on ESPN?
Well, it's cleaner than the hockey one, I can tell you that. They certainly do a better job of making it like, hey, here is number 10, here's number 9. Here, it's just quickly, they just kind of go. Now I'm watching it, the Sixers' perspective here, they get to a certain spot, I think it was 6, where Washington fell from the top 4 into number 6. And at that moment, Washington and Utah are 2 of the worst teams in the league. They have dropped out, which means 2 teams have jumped into the top 5. Well, Philadelphia owed their pick to Oklahoma City if it fell outside the top 6. At one point, Kevin Negandhi makes an announcement. The Sixers have lost their pick. They have to send it to Oklahoma City, which sent like shockwaves through. People were like, wait, what? You didn't know what happened. He just saying, yeah, the Sixers have lost their pick.
He confused it being a top 5 or a top 6 pick is the problem, right?
I think he just thought in his mind that the 2 teams that dropped out meant that nobody could jump in. I think he just got confused. Mitch meant when the 2 dropped out.
And I got to ask, did he correct it fairly quickly? Did somebody catch it and correct it?
It wasn't right away. He did correct it. But then what happened was, so he says the Sixers have lost their pick. They owe it to Oklahoma City. Well, they show a table of like Daryl Morey, and I actually had Nick Nurse on the radio with me today and asked him about it. And he said, yeah, I looked at Elton Brand and said, we just lost the pick. So they thought they lost the pick.
I saw the photo, the real-time reaction photo, where they've got like the head on the table. So they didn't even understand the rules at that moment that they had not lost their pick yet.
And ironically, I asked Nick Nurse today, I said, Daryl Morey is a numbers guy. Was he worried? And he's like, no, he knew that we were good. But me and Elton did look at each other and heard what Negandhi said. So they heard it. We heard it. We were all watching it. Well, then what happens is Philadelphia ends up having the pick. And then they went to commercial. So now you went from not having the pick to then having the pick and possibly getting the number 1 pick. Then they draw number 4, which isn't Philadelphia. I think it was New Orleans or maybe Charlotte.
Right.
And then Philadelphia came up number 3, and then 2, and then 1 goes to Dallas, which, the conspiracy theories begin that Dallas with a 1.8% chance, they end up getting the number 1 overall pick. And you have 2 teams, Utah and Washington, that were 2 of the worst teams in the league. They get bounced out of the top 5. So this thing is certainly.
But I love it. I love the fact this is 7 years in a row now. Say what you want about whether the NBA has their hand in doing this. I mean, it's getting a little absurd that 7 years in a row, the team with the worst record in the NBA doesn't get the number one pick in the lottery. But I love this from my standpoint. I want your take, because what it says is don't tank. Don't tank. Don't lose on purpose, because it's not going to reward you to lose on purpose. And we're seeing it over and over again as Utah had the worst record and they didn't get the number one pick. What do you think? What do you think?
Listen, they put this rule in a couple of years ago to even it out, where you get 14%, 14%, 14%, and that was supposed to. I don't think it helped anything. Teams were still losing on purpose. But the fact that, the team that had the worst record, I think they said, what was the number? How many years in a row now that the worst team has it?
2018 is the last year that a team that finished with the worst record won the lottery. So 7 straight lotteries, 2019 and beyond. It hasn't been the team with the worst record.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to prevent teams. Look, I don't think you have to be the worst, but I think teams are still going to lose. The Sixers, for instance, they lost 59 games this year. They had, as Daryl Morey pointed out, at the beginning of the year, they had the third best odds in Vegas to win the title. They ended up losing 59 games, but they got to a point of the season where the injuries just mounted up for them so much that winning did not benefit them.
No, meantime, Dallas makes the trade for Doncic, and say whatever you want about conspiracy theory. Nico Harrison standing there with 2 fists in the air, looking skyward. I mean, what a golden ticket to get Cooper Flagg to now come to that market and be potentially an iconic player for them for the next 10 years or more. Yeah. Stay tuned.
Because a lot of people have brought up, like, if you're the Sixers, you have Tyrese Maxey, pick number 3. Would Dallas be open for business to get an established player and then the 3rd pick? Because, listen, you have Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis already on your team. Is adding an 18-year-old kid the smart way to go, or is getting an established player and another pick?
From my standpoint, you take him and you build around him. And if the Kyries and the Anthony Davises have fallen off 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you're retooling around him. And don't forget that they also have Klay Thompson on that team right now for Dallas in the short term. This is something, though, that can be franchise, and it's a mulligan, like a golf term. We're going to talk golf and again in a little bit here. It's like a do-over. You traded Doncic and everybody clobbered you for it. Yeah. Well, now you've got somebody that can be an iconic player, and you can build around him with different pieces. I'm talking about in 2028 or in 2030 because of how young he is.
Even if the trade makes sense, you almost can't do it because you now have a player that makes the fans forget that you had Luka.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, it is the Last Word on Sports Media podcast as we're doing this live on Tuesday. Let's move to Michael Jordan and the NBA on NBC announcement that came on Monday, actually, that he will now be part of their coverage. What's a special contributor? What does this actually mean? Is he regularly going to be on? Is he going to be on every once in a while and only in the playoffs? It's not clear. Jordan said he was excited. I'm paraphrasing. He said in a statement, "I'm excited to be part of the return of the NBA on NBC, where so many of my great moments and memories were on that network, obviously in the 1990s, as the Chicago Bulls won 6 championships." What are your thoughts? And in specific, we talk about this all the time. Is MJ going to be willing to criticize Mike Gill? Is he going to be? So. What do you think? Go ahead.
I do think MJ is willing to criticize. MJ is one of them guys that almost is like, I think that Jordan still kind of holds the mantle of the GOAT and has great reverence to that. And I think he's okay letting people know that, hey, you have a long way to go to catch me. And I don't think he does it in maybe a spiteful way. I don't know. I feel like Jordan is kind of the cranky old man yelling at the cloud, but he does it so hidden, so kind of like anonymously. Like he's not, somebody had asked, is he going to be on the coverage on NBC as much as Gretzky is on TNT, which is like never. You never
very
see
little, right?
Very
right.
little. Do they pull him out for opening day? Do you pull him out for the All-Star game?
Right.
Do they pull him out for the playoffs? Like those type of things. I don't expect to see MJ all that much, but I got to imagine MJ saw Tom Brady's paycheck and said, I'll take some of that and I'll do less work. I mean, But I do think Jordan will be someone who will tell it like it is. I don't think he's going to
Jury is out for me. I mean, he has been neutral on so much stuff. And will he be willing? And keep one other important thing in mind. Amazing player. I think the argument can be made the greatest player in the history of the NBA. But as an executive, as the GM of the Wizards, and eventually as the owner, the managing partner of the Hornets, they were terrible teams with him at the helm. So if he starts lobbing bombs and darts at people, it's going to come back at him. That if you really knew all of this about who should be making the right move or the right trade or who has the right coach, then how come you couldn't figure it out as an executive? And I think that's a valid point too. I guess I got to wait to see him be critical. We talked about that with Brady in advance. Are you going to be willing to be critical and say, that's a terrible shot, or that coach doesn't know what he's doing with that lineup he's playing out there? Stay tuned on MJ. Right?
It's good, interesting, because Barkley obviously and him used to be buddies. Then they had a falling out, and Barkley's very willing to be critical of the league, the game, everything.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if Jordan is looking over at Barkley and saying, hey, he gets away with it. I'll let my feelings be known too. That, hey, buddy.
There is no question that Michael Jordan can rule the situation in the playoffs by saying, this is how I did it. This is how we did it in Chicago. This is what you have to do. And I'm interested. You're interested. And millions are interested with that.
Yeah, listen, and look, there's a lot of younger players right now. This group of guys, the LeBrons, the Kevin Durants, they're starting to age out a little bit here. And it's a new way. You're kind of watching it as it's happening. Look at the teams in the, Steph Curry's on the way out. You're starting to see Anthony Edwards. You're starting to see Cade Cunningham. SGA. You're getting a new wave of stars right now. Yes, Brunson's another one.
Well, we'll see with the NBA playoffs as it settles down. All right, let's move on to another subject. Coming on Wednesday night is the NFL schedule release. Yes, they turn everything into a televised event now with the NFL that has a lot watching. Again, there will not be the same interest as the NFL draft, but there is some interest, and they've already been leaking out some of the important games. You mentioned the opening kickoff game, the opening night game on the Thursday night, traditionally for the Super Bowl team at home, will be your Eagles in your market playing the Dallas Cowboys. They've also revealed the Black Friday game is the Eagles involved. I can't remember who that is off the top of my head. The Eagles in the Black Friday, Chicago. And then the Saturday doubleheader on Fox that they announced for late December is the Eagles and the Commanders. And the belief is the four teams that are playing on Fox, Mike, will turn around and play on Christmas the following Thursday.
No, that is not
maybe,
correct.
Maybe not. But go ahead with the schedule release and all the piecemeal announcements that are going on.
So we thought that too, but it was announced this morning that the Eagles will play the Packers on Monday Night Football on November the 10th. Well, the Packers are the other team that plays on Saturday. So a lot of people thought that the Eagles and Commanders play Saturday, the Bears and Packers play Saturday, and that those teams would be the turnarounds for Christmas. Well, they announced today that the Eagles and Packers are going to play, but it's going to be on November the 10th.
Earlier. So it's not that. So those four teams, they got to find another dance partner.
Because that's what they did last year. They played, if you remember, Christmas was on a Wednesday. So the teams that played Saturday came back and played Wednesday. The four teams, they just changed the order.
Alternated around. Right.
This year, because the game is Saturday, Thursday.
That's correct.
Christmas is on a Thursday. I think teams on Sunday play on Thursday anyway. So I think that put everybody back in play.
Understood.
To play in that game. So, yeah, there was a lot of conspiracies that the Eagles would get stuck also playing on Christmas Day, which right now, I'm not ruling out that they're going to be on Christmas Day, but so far it's not against the Packers.
And the rumors are out there about the Thanksgiving games. Again, I'm in the Buccaneer world. Are the Buccaneers on the Detroit Lions schedule for Thanksgiving Day for that early game or not? And again, how many national TV games will the Buccaneers get? They play Philadelphia again at home. We know the networks love the Eagles. You mentioned that ABC and ESPN already grabbed them once. So is the Eagles-Buccaneer game maybe a Sunday night game on NBC somewhere down the road? We'll see.
Here's what I'll ask you. you get 6 primetime games is the max, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is the Black Friday game, is that considered a primetime
I don't think so, because it's not a night game. It's a standalone game. Same thing with the Saturday games on Fox as standalone games. That's not, unless you're playing in the last one, it's not a primetime game, I believe is the distinction.
Okay, so that was my next question. The Saturday game against Washington, that I don't think is a primetime game. Is the opening Thursday night game considered
correct?
A primetime
yes,
game?
Correct. It is. So
Okay,
that counts towards the total.
That's one of their 6.
And the Monday night game that you just mentioned would be a second one. So
I would imagine the Eagles are going to get the full allotment of 6 primetime games, and I would not be shocked if they land on Christmas and or Thanksgiving as well.
And we have not talked about the name Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at this point. We know they're playing the Friday night opener in Brazil with the Chargers, and we know the Chiefs will get the max allotment of primetime games Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night, etc. when this all gets announced. So again, it's all coming on Wednesday, and just from a media coverage standpoint, I know the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, which we really haven't talked about here on this pod yet, they're all playing games, but this will also get a lot of audience and a lot of interest, a lot of impressions, and a lot of views on social media when the schedule is announced and who's playing where and where are the primetime games and where are the important games. And I know you've put the international games up there as well. You can go over that list, including the first ever game in Spain, the first ever game in Ireland. They made that list, Mike. Go ahead. They made that list available as well.
Now, there's a lot of people saying that it's going to be the Chiefs and the Chargers. I know this graphic says team to be announced Wednesday. Many people are reporting that it will be the Chiefs that are playing in Brazil, which is where Philadelphia and Green Bay opened on a Friday night last year. This is an interesting twist. The Vikings are playing in Dublin, and then the next week, the Vikings are going from Dublin to London. So they will be on the road in Europe for 2 straight weeks.
Right.
And then you've got a matchup in London between Denver and the Jets, then a London game with the Rams and the Jags, and then Atlanta and Indy are in Berlin, Germany, and
Correct.
then in Madrid, Spain, you've got Washington and Miami. But that's the first we've seen of back-to-back games in Europe.
Yeah, interesting that for the Vikings, they're the road team in both of those games, but they at least stay in the region. That's the first ever game in Ireland with the Steelers. The first ever game in Spain, the Buccaneers were on the radar as a road opponent of the Dolphins, but they chose Jaden Daniels and the Commanders instead for that matchup.
You happy about that?
Interesting. Well, look, I would have loved to have gone and seen Spain in November. There are going to be other opportunities where the Bucs are playing in November. Remember 3 years ago, they played the Seahawks in the first ever regular season game in Germany. The NFL has played a preseason game in Berlin. Dan Marino and the Dolphins were actually involved in the preseason game in Berlin back in the 90s, but early 90s. But now this is a regular season game, Falcons and Colts. And for all of these games, they're going to be I think every one of them, they're playing them in the morning. They're all going to be in the morning, early Eastern and Central time.
Except for the Brazil game.
The Brazil game will be a night game prime time. And I saw the announcement that game will be on YouTube and free to watch, by the way. YouTube on Friday night for the Brazil game, and fans will be able to see it without having to pay for it. So that's a good idea there from the NFL to kind of give back to the fans a little bit. So look for the full schedule release and all the mayhem. NFL is king, even with their schedule release on who's playing who. All right, so this kind of ties into the next topic, which is Andrew Marchand of The Athletic and his own podcast, his own website, reported on Monday that Rich Eisen's show, his TV radio simulcast show, will be moving this fall to ESPN. Eisen, a former ESPN mainstay as a Sports Center anchor and as a host up until 2003. He was there at ESPN from 1996 to 2003. Remember, he and Stuart Scott were famous for the late night Sports Center that was always on. So Eisen has been with the NFL Network as a host since 2004. He's had his own television show for the better part now of about 15 years. That show, Mike, has bounced around different TV outlets, different radio outlets. It's currently on the Roku channel for TV. It's currently on Sirius XM as an audio show. But the belief is, much like the Pat McAfee show deal, He and his production crew are going to provide the show to ESPN. They'll be in charge of all of the cost, of the production, of the booking of the guests, etc. And ESPN will air the show somehow, some way. Pick it up from here. Is this show maybe slated to try to help ESPN Radio this fall as a midday show for ESPN Radio? Mike, what do you know? What do you think?
According to Marchand, because I did listen to his podcast, him talking about this, apparently they are looking to refocus and add to ESPN Radio. There's been kind of a lack of focus on that property for a little while here. They just changed shows again. Greeny's show is no longer on. They have Clinton Yates is doing the 10 to noon, and then Joe Fortenbaugh and Q Myers are doing the 12 to 2 show. It will be interesting to see if Rich Eisen gets placed into one of those spots and continues to do his radio show. There was a report from Marchand that the ESPN tried to get Colin Cowherd, and he, held them off there. I don't know if that would have been radio either, but it would be interesting to see if, in fact, Eisen's show would be on there. I know, I think Pat McAfee made some reference today on his show that he wondered if ESPN was sending him a message by bringing Eisen back. I don't think that's the case. I think they just have this new product that they announced they're going to be launching in the fall, this ESPN over-the-top thing. It's going to be $29.99, and I think they're just looking for content on the platform.
And again, this is also fueling the speculation that ESPN will eventually be buying NFL media, and the personalities on the NFL network will essentially fold in as ESPN personalities and kind of interchange with the radio, et cetera. And I enjoy Eisen's show. I don't get to take it in all the time, but I see it in segments, the interviews, some of his takes, et cetera. It's just bounced all over the board, and maybe it gets some stability here from ESPN. Again, Dan Patrick has built a real stronghold in the middle of the day, as well as a former ESPN guy. Jim Rome is still going in the middle of the day. His show is primarily on Twitter X as the main outlet for his audience, as well as some radio, a little bit of radio.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, the middle of the day wars. Yes.
And I think Eisen is staying with NFL Network to do the stuff there until potentially they get bought by ESPN. But he's not leaving his duties with NFL Network. This is just his radio show that they are taking, which is also a video show on Roku. So it'll no longer be on Roku. It'll be on this ESPN platform, which they are calling ESPN. A lot of people have been calling it flagship, was kind of the term for it. But it will
remember, they were going to offer a streaming service with ESPN, with Fox, and with Warner Brothers Discovery Turner as a triple offering, and then it got blown up. It got stopped by the Department of Justice as being anti-competitive. Fubo TV is the one that lodged the complaint and got an injunction and stopped it.
Yep.
And so now they're all offering their own thing
what was
right
that called?
now.
Venue?
It was going to be called Venue.
Yeah.
They're ESPN's going to offer their own thing. Fox is going to call theirs, originally enough, Fox Sports. They're going to call their own streaming thing that. So they're having to do it as their own thing, and Rich Eisen's show will apparently be part of that. Stay tuned, including being able to be heard on the radio. It'll probably still, it's similar to the McAfee deal. You can probably still see it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I would imagine that these shows and platforms that ESPN is charging $30 a month, and they're saying, hey, you can watch McAfee, you can watch Eisen. They try to get Colin Cowherd. I think they're just going to try to get content.
But the key is, if I'm seeing McAfee every day on linear ESPN, on network ESPN, why am I going to tune into the ESPN streaming platform? So it makes you wonder if some of it will be exclusive, like the Eisen show isn't on a linear ESPN channel.
Keep in mind, this is for people who have cut the cord. If they don't want cable, but they want ESPN, now they have an option. Before, you had to have cable and or a YouTube TV or a Hulu. So you might be saying, hey, I don't want YouTube TV. I don't want Hulu.
I will say this:
want my ESPN.
Good luck to trying to get people to pay $29.95 for that. For some reason, I see price reduction in the short term.
My retort to that would be: they're saying we have Eisen, we have McAfee, we have X, Y, Z. It's worth the $29.99. I think they think that's an introductory price so that they can go up, because
Good luck.
They're gonna have the NBA. I think they're gonna figure something out with baseball to where they get all of these baseball local games. I think they're gonna try to do that and get them on the platform. So it will be a work in progress.
All right, stay tuned. Couple of more minutes, couple of more things on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. So the PGA Championship will be this weekend, golf's second official major of the year, right after the Masters and the Rory McIlroy win. And this is the 1-year anniversary of all the controversy last year in Louisville, which was one of the sports stories of the year when the number one golfer in the world, Scottie Scheffler, was literally arrested by Louisville police officers trying to enter the Valhalla Golf Club because a traffic cop, a police officer working traffic, thought he had disobeyed him and was upset with him and actually jumped on Scheffler's courtesy car, marked PGA Tour courtesy car. We talked about this a year ago when it happened. Amazingly, ESPN's Jeff Darlington, who was primarily known as a football reporter for them, was there to cover the PGA Championship, was having similar trouble trying to get into the golf course because of the traffic. There had been a fatality with a bus hitting a volunteer early morning on Friday morning and killing the volunteer. So the traffic was snarled for miles each direction. Darlington, right place, right time, started rolling video on the cops and Scottie Scheffler. All of this is a year ago. As in real time, we're watching him get arrested, put in the Louisville jail, then bailed out of jail and come back to make his morning tee time at the PGA Championship. Mike Gill, I see you shaking your head on the video that we're doing here on the social media broadcast. We have few guarantees in life, right? Death, taxes, Mike Gill at the free throw line, that's a guarantee. I can guarantee you Scottie Scheffler is going to get into the Quail Hollow Golf Club in Charlotte with no problem this year. There will be no problems whatsoever for him to get into the golf course this year for that major championship. And Jeff Darlington, by the way, gave an interview recently, and he still says to this day it is as surreal as anything he's been a part of a year later, that he's standing there in the early morning in the dark and the rain watching the cops arrest Scottie Scheffler. Mike Gill. Wow.
You look back at that whole situation and see how bizarre it was. And the fact that Darlington, didn't he have another bizarre situation happen near there where he happened to be there as well?
It was the Tyreek Hill situation later in the football season where he got arrested outside the Dolphin Stadium while Jeff Darlington is live on ESPN standing there again going, how does the same thing happen to the same guy live on ESPN again, where I'm now covering a player arrest, the Tyreek Hill arrest outside the Dolphin Stadium in South Florida on the day of the game, an hour and a half, 2 hours before the game. That was going on. So will the golf be dramatic? I don't know. Between Rory McIlroy, Scheffler, the number one player in the world, and some of the other great golfers. But clearly part of the backdrop is they're going to talk about this yet again, that it's a year later and how crazy. The president of the Valhalla Golf Club drove personally to the Louisville police station and basically said, what are you idiots doing? We're on worldwide TV. He was turning into the golf course at 3 miles an hour. What are you doing? And got him out, and it was crazy reality TV. And that was a year ago for this very tournament that'll start on ESPN. They'll have the full-fledged coverage Thursday and Friday. CBS will take over with the full coverage coming on Saturday and Sunday for the Golf Major Championship. So I'll be interested in this weekend, and here's hoping we don't have any off-course reality craziness.
Yeah, I would imagine the setup will be a little different in coming and going, getting in and out of that place this year. But yeah, it's funny because I played yesterday. We have the LPGA is in town June 6th here in our area. And the way they shut down the streets, and I would imagine for an event of this size is way bigger than what I'm dealing with. But, just the traffic and the way it stops and everything, it's just crazy getting in and out of these. Like, a lot of these country clubs or places are tiny little streets or one way in and one way out situations. So, yeah.
The golf, and they've got the U.S. Open upcoming next month. So the golf gets interesting with the majors. Stay tuned. I know not everybody's a golf fan. Let's finish up with hockey real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Did you see? I mean, the hockey playoffs have been dramatic.
No, haven't seen any.
All right. So the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champs who knocked my Tampa Bay Lightning, you see the Lightning hat over my shoulder, out of the playoffs. The Panthers are the defending champs. They were down 2-0 to Toronto. They've now won 2 dramatic games in a row. But one of their executives, their chairman, their vice chairman, and alternate governor was engaged in a social media spat with Maple Leaf fans and vulgarities being exchanged back and forth. Never a good idea. And the NHL has now announced he is banned indefinitely from participating in any team functions, any games, anything. This guy's name is Doug Sifu, I think is how you spell it, Cifu. And the FU is an interesting part because he was kind of doing the FU to the Maple Leafs fans. You can't be doing this, Mike Gill. You can't be doing this, trading barbs on social media with vulgarities, insults, and whatever to the.
I did not see this story. This is the first I'm hearing of it.
So the NHL on Tuesday afternoon basically said, because the series continues on here, that Sifu is not allowed to be part of this. So again, the question I have with the NHL is you don't have the major Northeastern markets. You don't have New York. You don't have Boston. Washington in trouble right now, losing to Carolina. You don't have Detroit. You don't have Chicago. You don't have the traditional teams, Pittsburgh, that everybody gravitates to as the northern markets. If we have Florida, right, Philadelphia, where you are. If we have Florida, Carolina in an Eastern final, that's trouble. Maybe the Edmonton, Canada angle will help. Dallas is with Winnipeg.
Had Edmonton last year, and that didn't help.
Right. So is the NHL strapped here by the lack of the northern teams? Do you buy that for the interest and for the ratings?
Totally buy that. Yeah, I mean, listen, if you told me that there was if you asked me on the spot right now who's left, I don't even know what round they're in.
Right.
I have no clue of what round.
And you're in an NHL market, allegedly, with the Flyers.
I am. In fact, I know more about Rick Tocchet, who was on TV the other night. He apparently wants to get back into coaching. And Philadelphia, I would imagine that he will be the next coach in Philadelphia. There's a good chance there. I know more about what's going on off the ice.
Right.
To what's going on.
By the way, Philadelphia coaching change, Rangers coaching change, Bruins coaching change, because they all missed the playoffs and have all made coaching changes.
But again, coaching changes happen every other week.
Correct. And again, my Lightning won the first 2 titles in this decade, the first 2 cups. Then the Vegas Golden Knights won it, and then the Florida Panthers won it. So again, it's definitely bringing new blood into winning it. But I don't know how much the Northeast, the upper Midwest is even caring, much less Canada is even caring about this. Right now at this stage for the NHL.
Not been in the playoffs for 5 years in a row now. So that's a major, and Chicago hasn't been good. You had the Rangers had a little bit, but they did not make it again this year. Boston not being good. You've lost Philly, Boston, New York, Chicago. Oof. That's
and Washington with Ovechkin's a great story, but they're losing the series to Carolina. So stay tuned on how much anybody else will care about the Stanley Cup playoffs, which do continue on ESPN and TNT. I still keep saying, by the way, Bob Wischusen, tremendously underrated on the play-by-play. He is phenomenal to listen to. He and Ryan Callahan calling the games. I know Wischusen is not going to do the most important games, and the conference final, that's going to be Sean McDonough and Ray Ferraro, but I love him. One more note before we get out of here. College football will be here before we know it. Not for a few weeks, at least, a couple months at least, but ESPN began to roll out the schedule and the game times of what they're going to televise on the first couple of weeks of the season. You've got it up on the screen for the video audience. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Dublin, Ireland, August 23rd. You said it's coming, man. August 23rd.
About 90 days, right? About 90 days, we'll have college football.
Yeah, that's my buddy Anthony Beck's son, Rocco Beck. He's the quarterback for Iowa State. He's the head coach, by the way, the father of
Tampa's Anthony Beck and Rocco Beck, the son, who's from Wiregrass Ranch High School here in Tampa Bay. Not good enough to get a scholarship offer from any of the Florida teams before Iowa State grabbed him. And they're playing in the Ireland Week 0 game. Remember that's the game a year ago that Florida State blew it against Georgia Tech as a 10-point favorite, and Florida State's season nosedive after that. But we've got Coach Prime in Colorado without his son Shador at quarterback.
If you go across the top, you got August 23rd in Ireland, then a Thursday night, the 28th. You have 2 games. You've got the Boise and South Florida, which is right near
Tampa,
neck of the woods.
Right in my part of the world. Yep.
Then you've got a Nebraska-Cincinnati game. Then Coach Prime, Georgia Tech. That's on Friday the
night,
28th.
right?
Then on Saturday, it's Syracuse and Tennessee. Then you got Alabama, Florida State. You got LSU and Clemson, Virginia Tech, South Carolina. The Holy War is back. Notre Dame
and Miami.
Not the Holy War, I should say. The Catholics versus Convicts, the 30 for 30. Notre Dame and Miami there on Sunday night of Labor Day weekend, and then TCU, North Carolina, Bill Belichick's debut Monday night, September the 1st.
We think his debut will be Monday night, September 1st, because the rumors are still out there that he'll never coach a game.
Yeah.
Belichick, by the way,
today.
Belichick, for his part at the ACC meetings today for the coaches, the ADs, and everybody involved with football, did reiterate he intends to get after it. And the stuff with his girlfriend, his 24-year-old girlfriend, he's trying to distance himself. He's saying that's away from the North Carolina football program. That only has to do with his book and his promotion and his social media. It's still not a good situation privately, because they were trying to do damage control in North Carolina with that whole scene. How about, by the way, as we wrap it up with the college football and all the talk, again, we wonder, is game day for the Lee Corso finale going to be at that Florida State-Alabama game in Tallahassee, weekend number 1?
Oh, good question.
For the Labor Day games. But how about who'd have thunk it that the arguably the greatest coach in the modern era of the NFL would be last weekend at a Miss Maine, Miss USA beauty pageant with his girlfriend, where, again, at that pageant, there were fewer than 200 people that were invited and included in this ballroom at a hotel in Rhode Island, or in Maine for her. Wow, it's crazy that this is what it is with Bill Belichick and the sidelight. And there is still some belief that he's never going to coach a game for North Carolina.
He's supposed to do, I think, the Today Show with Michael Strahan on Friday.
Or Strahan is Good Morning America. Strahan is Good Morning America. If that is
sorry,
it.
I'm not a weekday morning.
But in Belichick's case, the buyout for his contract up until June 1st is $10 million. And it's Pablo Torre who continues on his podcast to report that there are real problems behind the scenes with the university. And he believes
they just brought a PR guy in there
believes that Belichick's family has gotten to him and said, you're going to ruin your legacy here if this is a disaster at North Carolina. Pull the plug, pay the $1 million, pull the plug, don't do it. So stay tuned on whether he follows through and takes the challenge. Bill Belichick at North Carolina. That
story definitely worth keeping an eye on. I got 2 quick things before we rock. Vince Carter, by the way, he's going to NBC as well.
Okay.
So that's another hire for them.
Slightly less on the North Carolina analyst than Michael Jordan, but Vince Sanity deserves credit. He's a successful NBA player. And he's been on TV before.
Yeah. Belichick, Jordan, Carter, all North Carolina. What do you make of the NBC using the AI-generated voice of Jim Fagan to?
I think it's interesting because what they're doing is he will, I guess, be introing the different matchups, but they could probably pull some of that from the old archives of the 1990s, because you'd always have that recognizable voice going, this is the NBA on NBC. And then he would say, today from Madison Square Garden, it's the New York Knicks and the Chicago Bulls. If he did it enough times, you can pull the audio from that. But you're right. With the AI advancements, you could actually have Jim Fagan have a conversation with you if you want through a computer.
So they have a promo with him introducing the NBA on NBC. Apparently his family has signed off on this.
Yes.
But if you remember back in the NBC days, you would have Bob Costas do like a 2-minute dissertation about the matchup before they gave it to Fagan, who said, today it's the Portland Trailblazers and the Chicago Bulls. And then Costas would take back over. And I was thinking, can't they just grab the audio?
That's what I'm saying.
From them? But I mean,
the old stuff. Well, but again, the AI component is there. Fagan died several years ago. It was in his 80s. And again, was a legendary voiceover guy that they used, but he became synonymous with it. So NBC trying to recreate the magic right down to an AI guy.
I heard
I
heard, John Tesh was on with Jimmy Traina this past week talking about the round ball rock and whether he gets recognized more for that or Entertainment Tonight.
I would say in the sports culture, he's absolutely recognized for the whole round ball rock and made that famous in the 90s, and they're going to bring it back on NBC. We should mention again, and I don't have clarity on this part, that they've been using it on Fox Sports for their coverage of the Big East for the better part of about a decade now. Fox Sports has been using the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. They've been using it already. So I don't know if they're still allowed to use it or not.
That'll be interesting, yeah.
Tesh is cashing checks off of Round Ball Rock from 40 years ago, a song that it was almost like a throw-in on his instrumental album that became legendary because of the NBA on NBC, which will be back later this year for the first of an 11-year deal.
I see from our buddy John Lewis that Spiro Deeds says could be his last game on the NBA. He has not signed with anybody.
Interesting.
Amazon or NBC. He's calling a game tonight, so this might be the last game.
Yeah, Spiro Deeds has a deal with CBS for the NFL and the NCAA tournament. He did the Knicks for a while on the radio. He's not doing that anymore, so I don't know. I don't know if he gets back in or not on the sports media part.
John Tesh is bringing in the big bucks. If everybody hits the retweet button or subscribes on YouTube, maybe we can make some bigger bucks.
Maybe. Please do that. I think we're good for another edition. Thank you, Mike Gill. We thank you for the audience joining us on social media on Mike's YouTube page at Mike Gill Show. If you're only hearing us, come find the video show. If you're seeing us, it's a podcast on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify as well. Take us in the AirPods and the earbuds, as I like to say. Yeah. Check it out. Rate us and review us if you enjoy the sports media banter back and forth. Mike, have a good week. We'll see what happens with all of this. Playoffs, PGA Championship, the NFL schedule release. It's all good. Thank you, Mike.
See you, everybody.